The dogs in this house eat better than I do. Let me say that again. The dogs and cats in this house have 3 meals a day. Me? A human being? I'm lucky if I eat once every 3 days. My uncle screams at me. Beats me when he's angry. Beats me when he's not. I've learned to make myself invisible, but it's never enough. His wife? She's worse. Every morning, 4 a.m. sharp, she shakes me awake. Get up. Cook breakfast. I prepare a full meal, eggs, toast, tea, fruit for the children. The smell makes my stomach hurt because I know none of it is for me. The moment I finish cooking, she sends me out. Go buy milk. Go get bread. Hurry up. When I return, sweating and exhausted, the kitchen looks like a war zone. Dishes everywhere. Food spilled on the counter. Trash overflowing. And the breakfast I just cooked? Gone. Every last crumb. Clean this up, she says, stepping over me like I'm part of the furniture. Then she locks everything, the fridge, the pantry, even the cabinets, and leaves for work. I spend the rest of the day cleaning, mopping, scrubbing, washing, making sure everything is perfect for when they return. My hands crack and bleed from the chemicals. My stomach growls so loud I'm embarrassed, even though no one's home to hear it. You want to know the cruelest part? At 6 p.m., she comes home and feeds the dogs. Premium dog food, poured into clean bowls. The cats get salmon-flavored treats. I watch them eat while I stand there, dizzy from hunger, waiting to be told what to clean next. I'm not allowed to sit at the table. I'm not allowed to touch the food. I'm not even allowed to finish the leftovers. Those go straight into the trash, right in front of me. Because the trash is cleaner than you, she says. Sometimes, and I thank God for this, my younger brother Daniel smuggles food to me. A piece of bread hidden in his pocket. Half a banana wrapped in tissue. He's only 7, but he understands. He sneaks into my room late at night, places it next to me, and whispers, "Don't let them see." Then he's gone. Those nights, I cry while I eat. Not because of the hunger, but because a child has more compassion than the adults who are supposed to protect us both. I know what you're thinking. Where are your parents? Why don't they help you? My father died when I was 9. A car accident. He bled out on the side of the road while people just watched. My mother? She died the day my younger brother was born. Complications during delivery. I never even got to say goodbye. That's how I ended up here. With my uncle and his wife. My guardians. The people who promised my dying mother they'd take care of both of us. I know my voice sounds upbeat right now. I can't help it. That's just how I sound. But I want you to understand something. I haven't had a full night's sleep in over 2 years. The fear never goes away. Even when I close my eyes, I'm listening for footsteps. Waiting for the yelling to start. So tonight, since I'm awake anyway, I decided to do something I've never done before. Tell the truth. This is the first time I'm sharing my story publicly, and I need your help. Not money. Not pity. Just your voice. If this made you feel something, anything, please like this video and share it. Someone out there needs to see that they're not alone. Someone in your family, your school, your neighborhood might be going through the same thing, suffering in silence. I'm going to post a new part of my story every few days. If you want to follow my journey, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Before I go any further, drop a comment and let me know you're here. When I see your messages, it reminds me that I'm not invisible. That somewhere in the world, someone sees me. My name is Megan Bryan. And this is only the beginning of my story. Because what I'm about to tell you next, it's going to change everything. The worst day was October 12th, a Tuesday. I remember because it was Daniel's birthday, and I'd saved up 3 weeks of spare change to buy him a small chocolate bar. I'd hidden it in the lining of my winter coat, buried deep where they wouldn't find it. That morning, while I was scrubbing the bathroom floor, my uncle came in drunk. Not just tipsy, but staggering, reeking of whiskey. He stood in the doorway, watching me on my hands and knees, cleaning the grout with an old toothbrush. "Look at you," he slurred. "Just like your mother. Always on your knees for someone." I didn't look up. I kept scrubbing. That was my survival mechanism, become invisible. Don't react. Don't respond. But that day, something was different. He grabbed my hair, yanking my head back. The toothbrush scraped against the tile, making a sound like nails on a chalkboard. "I'm talking to you," he snarled. "Yes, sir," I whispered. He slapped me. Not with an open hand, but with the back of his fist. My head hit the side of the bathtub, and for a moment, everything went black. When I came to, he was gone, but there was blood on the white tiles. My blood. I cleaned it up before his wife came home. I learned to cry without making a sound that day. 3 weeks later, on November 3rd, his wife discovered the chocolate bar I'd bought for Daniel. She was cleaning my room, which meant rummaging through my few possessions, looking for anything she could confiscate or punish me for. She found it and held it up like evidence in a courtroom. "What's this?" she demanded, her voice dangerously quiet. It's for Daniel's birthday," I stammered. "His birthday was last month, but I didn't have enough money then." She laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "You think you deserve to buy gifts? You think you deserve anything." She made me watch while she unwrapped the chocolate and fed it to their dogs. Piece by piece. Then she slapped me so hard my ears rang for hours. The next day at school, Ms. Rodriguez asked about the bruise on my cheek. I fell, I said automatically. I had become an expert at hiding bruises with makeup and lying about their origins. Ms. Rodriguez looked at me for a long time, her expression unreadable. "Be careful, Megan," she said finally. "Some falls are harder than others." I almost told her everything right then. The words were right there, burning my tongue. But then I thought of Daniel, of what they would do to him if I spoke up. So I just nodded and walked away. December 18th was the worst. That was the day they found Daniel's secret stash of food he was saving for me. He'd been taking small amounts from the pantry, crackers, fruit snacks, anything he could hide in his room. They found it while I was at school. When I came home, Daniel was locked in the basement closet. I could hear him crying through the door. My uncle grabbed me by the throat. "You think you're so clever? Teaching him to steal from us?" To lie? I didn't, I choked out, his fingers tightening around my windpipe. "You're poison," he hissed. "Just like your mother. Always causing trouble." He dragged me to the garage and locked me in there for 2 days. No food, no water, no bathroom. Just concrete floor and darkness. When he finally let me out, Daniel was still in the closet. I could barely walk, but I crawled to him and held him through the night. The next morning, his wife acted like nothing had happened. She was getting ready for church, wearing her finest dress and a string of pearls. "We're leaving in 15 minutes, she said to me, as if I hadn't just spent 2 days locked in the garage. "Make sure the house is perfect before we get back. We're having the pastor and his wife over for dinner." They were saints at church. Monsters at home. My uncle was a deacon, respected in the community. His wife volunteered at the food bank, organized charity drives, and won Mother of the Year at the elementary school 3 years in a row. Their house was immaculate, their children well-dressed and polite. To outsiders, they were the perfect family. To me, they were hell. They told everyone I was a troubled child, rebellious, ungrateful. They claimed I had behavioral issues and refused to follow rules. At parent-teacher conferences, they would sigh and tell Principal Edwards how hard they tried with me, how much they sacrificed. We took her in after her parents died, his wife would say, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "We've done everything for her, but she's just difficult." People believed them. Why wouldn't they? They were pillars of the community. I was just a quiet, awkward teenager with dead eyes and too many bruises. I started planning my escape at 16. It took me 9 years. 9 years of hiding money, of documenting everything, of waiting for the right moment. 9 years of watching Daniel grow up in that house, of protecting him as best I could. I found hiding spots throughout the house, loose floorboards in the closet, behind the water heater in the basement, inside an old teddy bear in the back of my closet. In these spots, I kept a journal, documenting every incident with dates and details. I kept a small disposable camera, taking pictures of my injuries when I could. I learned to dissociate, to leave my body during the worst moments. I would float above myself, watching as if it were happening to someone else. It was the only way to survive. I learned to cry without making a sound. I told Ms. Rodriguez years later, after everything was over. I learned to make myself invisible. I learned that pain is temporary, but fear is forever. She cried when I said that. She had suspected something was wrong, but she hadn't known how bad it was. None of them had. The breaking point came on a sweltering Tuesday in July. I was 24, working 2 jobs and saving every penny. Daniel was now 12, growing tall and quiet. That day, I came home from my shift at the grocery store to find my uncle waiting for me at the kitchen table. He had a stack of papers in front of him. "Sit down," he said, his voice unusually calm. I sat, my heart pounding. Calm was always worse than anger. Calm meant he'd been thinking. Planning. "Do you know what these are?" he asked, pushing the papers toward me. I looked down. They were legal documents. Guardianship papers. And a letter from a lawyer. "Your parents left you a trust fund," he said. "A substantial one. You were supposed to get access to it when you turned 21. I stared at him, confused. I had no idea my parents had left me anything. No one had ever mentioned it. "We've been managing it for you," he continued. "But it's time for you to be on your own. You're 24 now. It's time." He slid another paper across the table. It was an eviction notice, giving me 30 days to get out. 30 days, he said, standing up. "And then you're gone. With nothing." I sat there stunned. They had been stealing from me. All these years, they had been taking money that was meant for me. Money that could have gotten me out of there sooner. That night, something broke in me. Or maybe it finally healed. I stopped being afraid. I started getting angry. I lay in bed, listening to Daniel's breathing in the next room, and I realized I have nothing left to lose. The next morning, when his wife woke me at 4 a.m. to make breakfast, I looked her in the eye. Just for a second. But it was enough. She faltered, surprised by my direct gaze. "What are you looking at?" she snapped. "Nothing," I said, turning away. But inside, I was thinking, I see you. I see what you are. That day at work, I told my friend Jessica everything. We had worked together for 3 years, but I had never shared the details of my home life. She had suspected something was wrong. She had seen the bruises, noticed how thin I was, how I never ate lunch, but she had respected my privacy. "I'm getting out," I told her during our break. "And I'm taking Daniel with me." Jessica didn't hesitate. "Whatever you need," she said. "Whatever it takes. I'm with you." They made me invisible. I was about to become unforgettable. The next month was a blur of planning and preparation. I became strategic, methodical. Every action had a purpose. Every moment was an opportunity. First, documentation. I bought a cheap smartphone with cash, one that couldn't be traced back to me. I started recording everything. Audio of their verbal abuse, captured with the phone hidden in my pocket. Photos of my injuries, of the locked pantry, of my barren room compared to the children's rooms. I took screenshots of cruel text messages they sent me, commands and insults. I expanded my journal, adding more details, more context. I wrote down every incident I could remember with dates and times. I made copies of everything, storing them in multiple locations, some with Jessica, some in a safety deposit box I opened under a fake name, some in a cloud storage account Jessica helped me set up. Next, building a support network. Jessica was my first ally, but I needed more. I remembered Ms. Rodriguez from high school, the teacher who had almost seen through my lies. I found her contact information online and arranged to meet her at a coffee shop. "I need your help," I said, without preamble. "I'm leaving my uncle's house, and I'm taking my brother with me. But I need to make sure they can't hurt us again." I showed her the evidence, the photos, the journal entries, the recordings. She believed me immediately. Her face went pale, then flushed with anger. "Why didn't you tell someone sooner?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I was afraid," I said. "For Daniel. For myself." Ms. Rodriguez connected me with Linda Hayes, a social worker with Child Protective Services. Linda was tough but compassionate. She listened to my story, reviewed my evidence, and agreed to help. "This is solid," she said, looking through my documentation. "But we need to be careful. We need to make sure you and Daniel are safe when we make our move." Together, we researched legal options. Linda introduced me to attorney Rebecca Morgan, who specialized in abuse cases and agreed to take my case pro bono. Rebecca was fierce, intelligent, and determined to help me get justice. Financial preparation was next. I had been saving money for years, hiding it in various places around the house. Now I consolidated it, opening a secret bank account with Jessica's help. I copied important documents, my birth certificate, my parents' death certificates, my social security card, keeping the originals with Jessica and the copies in my safety deposit box. During this process, I discovered the full extent of their theft. With Rebecca's help, I accessed the records of my trust fund. They had been siphoning money for years, using it for their own expenses while telling me I had nothing. The total amount they had stolen was staggering enough to pay for college, to buy a house, to start a new life. Finally, planning the escape. Rebecca helped me file for an emergency protective order to be served the day we left. Linda arranged for emergency placement for Daniel and me. Jessica offered her spare bedroom as a temporary safe house. I studied their routines, looking for the best time to leave. There were close calls. Once, my uncle almost caught me taking photos of the locked pantry. Another time, his wife found one of my hiding spots, but I had already moved everything to a new location. The fear was constant, a knot in my stomach that never loosened. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Jessica asked one night as we packed an emergency bag to hide in her car. "I've never been more sure of anything," I said, folding Daniel's favorite shirt. The nightmares got worse as the day approached. I would wake up gasping, convinced they had found my evidence, that they knew what I was planning. But then I would look at the photos of Daniel sleeping on my phone, and my resolve would strengthen. "I'm doing this for that 9-year-old girl," I told Linda during one of our check-ins. "For Daniel. For every silent child who can't speak up." After weeks of preparation, I finally had everything I needed. The evidence was organized, the support network was in place, the escape route was planned. All that was left was to choose the right moment. The opportunity came sooner than expected. It was the third Sunday in August, and my uncle had invited several extended family members over for a barbecue. The house was full of people, cousins I hadn't seen in years, family friends who remembered my parents, church members who admired my uncle's generosity for taking in 2 orphaned children. They were in full performance mode. My uncle was the gracious host, telling jokes and slapping backs. His wife was the perfect hostess, making sure everyone had enough to eat, refilling drinks, smiling warmly. I watched them, my phone recording in my pocket. I had Daniel stay close to me, both of us playing our parts, the quiet niece, the shy nephew. But I had a plan. After everyone had eaten, when they were all relaxed and content, I stood up. "Can I have everyone's attention for a moment?" I asked, my voice clear and steady. The conversations died down. All eyes turned to me. "I have something I need to share," I continued, my heart pounding, but my hands steady. "Something about my life in this house." My uncle's smile faltered. His wife froze, a plate of potato salad in her hands. "For the past 15 years, I have been physically, emotionally, and financially abused by my uncle and his wife," I said, looking directly at them. "They have starved me, beaten me, locked me in rooms, and stolen my inheritance." The room went silent. Someone gasped. "I have evidence," I said, pulling out my phone. Photos of my injuries. Recordings of their verbal abuse. Documentation of the money they stole from my parents' trust fund. I started playing a recording, the one from October 12th, when my uncle was drunk and violent. His voice filled the room, slurring cruel words about my mother. "That's fake," he said, standing up. "She's manipulating that." "I have more," I said, switching to photos of my injuries, bruises, cuts, the scar on my forehead from when he pushed me into the bathtub. "She's always been a troubled child," his wife said, tears in her eyes. "We've done everything for her." "Then explain these photos," I said, showing them pictures of the locked pantry, of my barren room compared to the children's rooms. "Explain why I weigh 95 pounds. Explain why Daniel has been hiding food to bring to me because he's afraid I'll starve." I looked at Daniel, who was standing beside me, his small hand in mine. "Tell them," I said softly. "You don't have to be afraid anymore." Daniel looked around the room, at all the shocked faces, and then he spoke, his voice clear and strong. "They hurt her every day," he said, tears streaming down his face. I tried to help, but I was too small. "I'm sorry, Megan." The doorbell rang. Linda Hayes stood there with Detective Williams and 2 uniformed officers. "Megan Bryan?" Detective Williams asked. "Yes," I said. "We have a warrant for their arrest," he said, walking into the house. "And an emergency protective order for you and your brother." The scene erupted into chaos. My uncle started yelling, denying everything. His wife collapsed into dramatic, manipulative tears. Family members were shouting, crying, demanding explanations. Through it all, I stood firm, Daniel beside me. I watched as Detective Williams read them their rights, as Linda guided Daniel and me toward the door. As we were leaving, I heard Mrs. Henderson, our next-door neighbor, speaking to Detective Williams. "I always knew something was wrong," she said. "I heard screaming sometimes, late at night. I saw Megan with bruises. But I never imagined." I felt a surge of anger, but also relief. Someone had known. Someone had suspected. But it didn't matter now. We were safe. When we got outside, Jessica was waiting with her car. She hugged me tightly, both of us crying. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it." My knees buckled as the reality hit me. I had done it. After all these years, I had spoken up. I had fought back. And I had won. The next few months were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. Detective Williams and his team conducted a thorough investigation, interviewing neighbors, teachers, doctors, anyone who had contact with our family. They found more evidence than I could have imagined. Mrs. Henderson, our neighbor, provided testimony about the late-night screaming she had heard. Maria, the clerk at the grocery store where I worked, remembered times when my uncle had come in yelling at me when I had come to work with visible injuries. Dr. Stevens, who had treated me for a broken arm when I was 17, reviewed my medical records and confirmed that the injuries were consistent with abuse, not the accidental fall my uncle had claimed. CPS removed Daniel from the home immediately, placing him with me in Jessica's spare bedroom. They opened a formal investigation, conducting home visits and interviews. The criminal charges came quickly: assault, child abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation. Rebecca filed a civil lawsuit for the stolen inheritance, seeking damages for the years of financial abuse. The media picked up the story. The local news ran a piece about the respectable deacon and his wife, accused of horrific abuse. The church community was shocked, the neighbors were horrified, and the town was divided, some defending my uncle and his wife, others expressing outrage and support for me. The court dates were grueling. I had to testify, to relive every moment of abuse in front of a room full of strangers. I had to listen as their lawyer tried to discredit me, to paint me as a troubled, ungrateful child who was lying for attention. But I had evidence. I had witnesses. I had the truth. The most powerful moment came during the criminal trial when Rebecca cross-examined my uncle. "You claim you took in your niece and nephew out of the goodness of your heart," she asked. "Of course," he said, playing the part of the benevolent guardian. "We sacrificed so much for those children." "Did you sacrifice when you locked Megan in the garage for 2 days without food or water?" Rebecca asked, her voice sharp. "That never happened," he said, but his face flushed. "Did you sacrifice when you stole over $200,000 from her inheritance?" Rebecca continued. "That's not true," he insisted, but the jury didn't look convinced. Then Rebecca called Daniel to the stand. He was small for his age, but he spoke with a clarity and strength that silenced the courtroom. "They hurt my sister," he said, his voice clear. "Every day. And no one helped her until she helped herself." The verdict came on a Tuesday. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced my uncle to 15 years in prison, his wife to 10. The civil trial resulted in a judgment ordering them to pay back every cent they had stolen, plus damages. After the verdict, I gave a victim impact statement. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "You took my childhood," I said, looking directly at them. "You took my sense of safety. You made me believe I was worthless. But you were wrong. I survived you. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure no child ever suffers what I suffered in silence." As I walked out of the courtroom, people I didn't know were applauding. Reporters were shouting questions. But all I could see was Jessica, Linda, and Ms. Rodriguez, waiting for me with tears in their eyes. We had won. Justice had been served. The first months after the trial were both liberating and terrifying. Jessica's one-bedroom apartment became our temporary home, with Daniel and me sharing her spare bedroom. It was cramped, but it was safe. The pantry didn't have a lock. The fridge was full. We ate dinner together every night at an actual table. But freedom didn't erase the trauma. I had nightmares every night, waking up gasping, convinced I was still locked in that house. I had panic attacks in grocery stores, triggered by the sight of certain foods. I flinched at raised voices, at sudden movements. I checked the locks 3 times before bed, then got up to check them again. Daniel was struggling too. He had nightmares, bedwetting episodes, sudden bursts of anger. He would hide food in his room, old habits dying hard. When I found the hidden granola bars, I didn't say anything. I just made sure the pantry was always stocked. We started therapy with Dr. Elena Hartman, a specialist in trauma and abuse. She was patient, understanding, and incredibly knowledgeable about the long-term effects of what we had been through. Healing isn't linear, she told me during one session, after I confessed that I still felt afraid, even though I knew I was safe. You're safe now, but your body doesn't know that yet. It's still in survival mode. It will take time for your nervous system to catch up with reality. Physical recovery was slower than I expected. I had been malnourished for so long that my body had trouble processing regular meals. I had stomach problems, vitamin deficiencies, a weakened immune system. Dr. Stevens monitored my health, prescribing supplements and dietary changes. The financial settlement from the civil trial helped, but it didn't solve everything. I had to learn basic financial skills, how to budget, how to save, how to plan for the future. I had never had control over money before, and the responsibility was overwhelming at first. But there were small victories. The first full night of sleep without nightmares. The first meal I ate without feeling guilty. The first time I bought groceries without worrying about the cost, without counting every penny. The first time Daniel laughed, a real, joyful laugh, was like music to my ears. We were at a park, and he was chasing a butterfly, his face lit up with pure happiness. I hadn't seen him look like that in years. Aunt Clara, my mother's sister, reached out after reading about the case in the news. She lived 3 states away, but she drove to meet us, bringing photos of my mother, stories I had never heard. "I'm so sorry," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I tried to stay in touch after your parents died, but they made it so difficult. They said you were doing fine, that you didn't want visitors." We formed a tentative relationship, slowly getting to know each other. She became another ally, another support system. The online community that had followed my story continued to show support. The video series I had started telling my story had gone viral after the trial. Comments poured in from around the world, survivors sharing their own stories, allies offering support, people thanking me for speaking up. One comment stood out: "Your story gave me the courage to leave my abusive situation. I'm safe now because of you." Reading that, I felt something shift inside me. My pain, my suffering, it had meaning. It had purpose. It was helping others. One night, about 6 months after the trial, I broke down. The weight of everything hit me at once: the years of abuse, the trauma, the responsibility of caring for Daniel, the pressure of being a survivor and advocate. "I don't know if I can do this," I confessed to Jessica, sobbing. "I'm so tired." Jessica held me, letting me cry. "You don't have to be strong all the time," she said. "You've been carrying this for so long. Let someone else carry it for a while." The next day, I had a session with Dr. Hartman. "Why do I still feel afraid?" I asked her. "They're in prison. We're safe. Why can't I feel safe?" "Because trauma changes the brain," she explained. "Your nervous system is wired for danger now. It will take time to rewire it for safety. But you will. You're already doing it." Later that week, Daniel and I celebrated my 25th birthday. It was the first birthday I had ever celebrated with joy, with genuine happiness. Jessica baked a cake. Aunt Clara sent a gift. Ms. Rodriguez and Linda came over. We laughed, we ate, we celebrated life. "You saved us, Megan," Daniel said later that night, his head on my shoulder. I held him close, tears in my eyes. "We saved each other," I whispered. A year has passed since the trial. I'm 26 now, living in a small apartment with Daniel. We have 2 bedrooms, a living room filled with books, a kitchen where the pantry doesn't have a lock. We have a cat, a rescue named Shadow, who sleeps on my bed at night. I don't forgive them. I don't have to, but I'm free of them. Some people asked why I didn't leave sooner. They don't understand that survival isn't simple. When you're a child, when you're dependent on your abusers, when you're trying to protect someone younger than you, options are limited. Choices are complicated. My scars tell a story. Not of shame, of endurance. The faint scar on my forehead from when my uncle pushed me into the bathtub. The thicker one on my arm from when he broke it. The small, round ones on my hands from cleaning chemicals. Each one is a reminder of what I survived, of how strong I was even when I felt weak. I learned that speaking up isn't easy, but silence is heavier. Megan at 25 was a survivor, raw and wounded but determined. Megan at 26 is something else, something more. I'm still healing, still processing, still dealing with the aftermath. But I'm also thriving. I'm going back to school to study social work, inspired by Linda Hayes, by the desire to help others like me. My relationship with Daniel has transformed. We're healing together, supporting each other through the hard days, celebrating the good ones. He's in therapy too, learning to process his trauma, to express his feelings in healthy ways. He's thriving in school, making friends, discovering who he is outside the shadow of abuse. My relationship with my body is still complicated. I still struggle with eating, with body image, with the physical remnants of malnutrition. But I'm learning to nourish myself, to treat my body with kindness rather than punishment. I'm learning to eat without shame, without guilt, without fear. My voice has changed too. It's no longer apologetic for existing. It's confident, clear, unafraid to speak truth, to set boundaries, to say no. I'm a fierce protector of my peace now, of my safety, of my hard-won freedom. Some triggers remain. Loud arguments still make me flinch. The smell of certain cleaning chemicals still brings back memories. I still check the locks 3 times before bed. Nightmares come and go, especially when I'm stressed or tired. Trust is still hard. I'm cautious with new people, slow to let them in. But I'm learning to distinguish between caution and fear, between healthy boundaries and walls that isolate. Not everyone who sees abuse will help. That's not your fault. Mrs. Henderson heard the screaming, but did nothing. Maria at the grocery store saw the bruises, but stayed silent. Teachers noticed I was thin, but never asked why. Their inaction is not my burden to carry. Your abuser's explanations don't matter. Their reasons don't erase your pain. My uncle and his wife had excuses for everything. They were stressed. They were trying to discipline me. I was difficult. I was lying. None of it matters. None of it justifies what they did. Justice doesn't erase trauma. But it proves you weren't crazy. You weren't lying. It happened. The guilty verdict, the prison sentences, the financial restitution, none of it erased the pain, the memories, the nightmares. But it validated my experience. It proved I wasn't making it up. Healing looks different for everyone. There's no timeline. Some days I feel strong, capable, almost normal. Other days, the trauma feels fresh, the pain sharp and immediate. Both are valid. Both are part of the process. To everyone who watched this video series and shared it, thank you. You reminded me I wasn't invisible. Your comments, your messages, your support, they carried me through the darkest days. To everyone still trapped, I see you. Your voice matters. Your pain is real. You're stronger than you know. There is help, there is hope, there is a way out. To everyone who doubted, I don't need your belief anymore. I know my truth. I lived it. I survived it. Daniel is 13 now, thriving in therapy, growing into a compassionate, resilient young man. He calls me his hero, but I know he's the real hero. He survived too. He protected me when he could, when he was just a small child with more courage than most adults. Our bond is unbreakable. We're healing together, creating new memories, building a life defined not by what we endured, but by what we overcame. I went to the grocery store yesterday. I stood in the pet food aisle for a long time, staring at the premium dog food brands. The kind she used to buy for her precious pets while I starved. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just remembered. Then I walked to the next aisle and filled my cart with whatever I wanted. Chocolate, fresh bread, real butter, fruit that wasn't bruised. I paid for it with money I earned. Money no one can take from me. When I got home, Daniel helped me put the groceries away. We have our own place now. Small, but it's ours. The pantry doesn't have a lock. The fridge is full. We eat dinner together every night at an actual table. Sometimes he still sneaks food into his room. Old habits die hard. When I find the hidden granola bars, I don't say anything. I just make sure the pantry is always stocked. Last week, he asked if we could get a dog. I said maybe someday, when we're ready. He smiled and said, "But you'll feed it, right? Not like before." "Yes," I told him. "I'll feed it. And you. And me. Every single day." That's a promise. They're in prison now. Not for long enough, but long enough for us to rebuild. Long enough for us to learn what safety feels like. I still have nightmares. I still flinch at raised voices. I still check the locks 3 times before bed. But I also laugh now. Real laughs. The kind that come from somewhere deep, somewhere they couldn't touch. My name is Megan Bryan. I am 26 years old. I am a survivor. And I am no longer invisible. If you're still watching, still here with me, thank you. Your comments, your shares, your messages, they save me in ways you'll never fully understand. This is my story. But it's also yours if you need it to be. You are not alone. You are not invisible. And you are so much stronger than they ever told you. Daniel and I sit at our kitchen table, eating dinner together, laughing at something silly, safe. The cat purrs at our feet, the sun sets outside our window, and for the first time in a long time, everything feels okay. The dogs in this house eat well. But so do I.